So let's get mentally fit here. I want everyone to stand, and I'm going to share with you. I had a great plane ride here with Maria and Dr. Drew, Dr. Richard, Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and she has a great book called Brain Food. And I recommend everybody get this book, Brain Food. And here, I'm going to share with you right now how to remember these 10 foods. Have you ever gone to the store just to buy one thing, and you come back with 2 bags full of things from Air One or something, and you have everything but that one thing, right? So I'm going to share with you one tip on how to be able to remember a grocery list that you could apply towards giving a speech, like a TED Talk or some facts in your job. And the key, though, is visualization, because we remember things that we see better than things that we hear. Because you go to somebody and say, I remember your face, but I forgot your name. You never go to someone and say the opposite. You never go to someone and say, I remember your name, but I forgot your face. There's a Chinese proverb that goes, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. What I hear, I forgot. I heard the name, I forgot the name. What I see, I remember. I saw the face, I'll remember the face. And what you do, coming back to practice, that's what you really understand. So there are 10 really amazing brain foods. And this is neuronutrition, right? Because your brain has different requirements than the rest of your body. So here are the 10 foods. Now, I'm going to show you how to memorize this forwards and backwards. How many people are excited about this? So what we're going to do is an ancient memory technique developed by the ancient Greeks about 2,500 years ago to be able to memorize poetry and lines if you're an actor. And what it is we learn that we store information in places. And so what they did is they took ideas that they want to remember and stored it in different places around their home, for example. And so they put the first idea in the first place, the second idea in the second place. By the way, if you ever found yourself saying that, in the first place this, in the second place that, that's where the language came from, this old memory technique, okay? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take 10 places that we're very familiar with, which is our body. All right, so I want you to do this. We learned it through doing and saying it. 1, we're going to take 10 places going on top of your head to the bottom. 1 is top. Say it. 1 is what? 2 is nose. 3 is mouth. 4, ears. 5 is your throat. 6, shoulders. 7, collar. 8, fingers. 9, belly. And 10 is your seat, your yoga seat. You remember them? 1 is what? 2, 3. All right, how's your memory? Pretty good, right? Now, what we're going to do now is take the 10 foods and put them in these 10 places really fast. The key, though, this is the key to a long-term memory. Do this. Information. One more time. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. We remember things that make us feel a certain way. How many of you can hear a song and take you back to when you were a teenager? Or a food, or a fragrance, right? So you have to add emotion. So the key is visualization and emotion. So the first brain food you're gonna put in the top of your head are avocados. Yes. So imagine you're making guacamole, and if it makes you laugh, that's why you remember it, right? So guacamole all over your what? Very good. We'll do this fast. Number 2 is what? And I want you to remember there are blueberries. Blueberries, very neuroprotective. I call them brain berries. Blueberries coming out of your what? Very good. Number 3 is what? What's your third place? And I want you to remember broccoli, like a big stalk of broccoli stuck in your teeth. Can you imagine that? What would that feel like? And if you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it. All right? Number 4 is what? Ears. Olive oil. Imagine you're cleaning your ears with what? Olive oil. What would that feel like? Number 5 is what? And I want you to remember sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes in your throat. Like instead of, imagine you have a sweet potato like taped on your throat, right? Number 6 are what? Green leafy vegetables. I want you to imagine you have kale shoulder pads. Look to your left and right, you see the kale shoulder pads, right? Number 7 is what? Your collar, wild salmon. Imagine you have a necklace made out of what? Salmon. What would that smell like, right? 8 are what? And this is turmeric. Turmeric's very good, anti-inflammatory, right? Imagine you have that golden powder all over your fingers. You can't take rid of them. Finally, number 9 and 10. 9 is what? Walnuts, very good for your brain. Imagine you're eating walnuts out of your what? And you would never forget that, right? It's kind of silly and childish, but who are the fastest learners? Children, right? And finally, number 10 is what? Seed. I want you to remember dark chocolate. I don't even want to know what you're picturing, okay? All right, now you're at the supermarket, you're at Air One, we're gonna have a super brain party. Maria calls you up and say, can you pick up these 10 quick things? You're driving, you can't write it down, but you have it on your list, right? You walk into the aisle, and all of a sudden the first food you need is what? Very good. Kale, salmon. Give yourselves a round of applause. My message for you is this. If you want more mechanics, you could check out our podcast. Just search my name on your podcast app. We have about 300 million video views on Facebook and YouTube, which are instructional like this. And your life is like an egg. That if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. Great things begin on the inside. You have greatness inside of you. You have genius inside of you. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Okay, so we founded HFC about 8 years ago. My mom, Adele, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when she was 55. That was about 13 years ago. And we spent, of course, as many people do, the first few years feeling very lost and sad and without any sort of hope. And then we decided to do something about it. And luckily, we realized we were so not alone, and unfortunately, so many people are battling this disease, are caring for loved ones, and want to do something about it. So we formed HFC, and in our 8 years, we've raised over $12 million. And through those years, we have formed amazing partnerships, like with Maria Shriver and the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. And see, everyone's so nice here. This is so lovely. I know, but what we try to do is help people today and also help people tomorrow, and that is our focus.
One of the things we do for people today is help, like Lauren was saying, provide in-home care for people who can't afford it, because we've just seen through our own lives that has been something that has made the situation much more manageable. And teaching people about brain health has become a very high priority for us. It's just a drastically underserved area. The average person knows how to take care of their lungs and their heart and their body, but really does not understand how to take care of their brain, as is evidenced by the fact that I am the one saying this to you. I'm not known for being fit or smart, and I'm the celebrity you got. So it just shows how much attention is needed in this area when I'm the one telling people about physical activity and brain health.
But luckily, Maria Shriver, who is known for doing amazingly smart things with her brain, has also been such a tremendous champion and, of course, partner to us in this disease.
And she will talk about it much more eloquently. Yes, so please welcome her up. Maria Shriver, everybody.
I'm going to bring up now 3 people who are on the front lines, who know more about Alzheimer's and brain health and your mind than anybody in the world. They all flew out here just for today. You get to ask them any questions. I'll kick it off. Dr. Richard Isaacson, who leads the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic in New York. Several-year waiting list to get in to see him. So he is terrific, and I've been in to see him. Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who leads the Women's Brain Initiative, and has a new book coming out called The XX Brain, and knows more about women and brain health. And Dr. Jessica Caldwell from the Cleveland Clinic in Ruvo, and is here from Las Vegas. The money you raise today funds their research. It doesn't go to us, it goes to them, and they are all studying your minds And they're coming out with information that will change your future. So let me begin right away with Richard, who published a huge study that came out on Thursday that was funded by WHAM, Hilarity for Charity, and a couple other organizations, that says for the very first time, what you did today, and you have to add some other things, is going to change how your brain works. Richard?
Yeah, honestly, I am just super, super thrilled to be here. Thank you all for doing this. You guys are changing the face of women's brains. Maria put me on the spot like 3-4 years ago and said, you know, why are more women getting Alzheimer's? And I paused, and I don't like pausing. I want to know the answer. And in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I kind of am getting it now. I think I have a sense. We published a study on Wednesday. You can check CNN, Wall Street Journal, whatever you want to, whatever. It made international news. This study was funded by you, okay, by you guys, okay? And for the first time ever, we actually showed something very interesting, that a doctor and a patient, that means you guys who are at risk, who may have no symptoms at all, but want to protect your brain against Alzheimer's, you can work with your doctor and you can do things. You can grab the bull by the horns. You can do things, and not just maybe slow down things, but our study showed that 18 months after doing all the things we did today, memory function was better. We optimized brain function.
So tell them what they have to do. Get to the chase.
Well,
Because they have to wait 3 years to go see you, so
okay.
tell them right now.
So a couple of things. So there's 21 things on average that people were doing in the study. Exercise by far is number one. Nutrition, experts all over the place, especially right here. Mediterranean style diet, less of the bad carbs, good fats, fatty fish, yada yada. You'll continue with that. Sleep. Pay attention to sleep. Get these silly phones out of the face at night, right? Set a plan for sleep. Deep breaths. Take a breath, breathe, stress reduction, okay? Lots of stress, really, really bad. There's so many things a person can do. Know your numbers, know what your resting heart rate is, know what your blood pressure is. Just by reducing your blood pressure, really quick. In the last year, we figured this out. By reducing your blood pressure from the 140s over 80s, which used to be called normal, to the 120s over 70s, just reduce it that much for 3 years. You know what we can do? Reduce the risk of early Alzheimer's by 19%. 19%, just one thing. So you had the exercise, plus the caffeinated coffee in the morning, get you going. Good, that's good. Mocha for your memory in the morning. Plus the stress reduction, plus the sleep, plus all of these different things. Sometimes people need vitamins, sometimes supplements, but most people may not need that kind of stuff. Talk to your doctor, get educated, get informed, and you right there, everyone here today, can make an impact on your brain health tomorrow. Thank you so much for doing what you do.
So, as I said, and it's no joke, Richard has a several-year waiting list to get in to see him, which is why it's so important for each person to be empowered with the information you need to tell your doctor. You need to be in the position of educating the doctors that you see on the front lines about what you're learning here today, because unfortunately, most doctors don't have this information, and most doctors have a research gap when it comes to women's health. But in particular, this woman right here leads the Women's Brain Initiative. I've done several stories on her. She has a new book coming out in March called The XX Brain, and she is focusing on what is happening in women's brains that might give us a clue as to why 2/3 of all the cases of Alzheimer's are women. And she zeroed in on the perimenopausal, menopausal space. So that's women in their 40s and 50s. What do they need to know today? Lisa Mosconi.
There's so much that we just don't know about women's brains, and I think just in this past year or a couple of years, we're just really getting to learn so much more. And I think the bottom line is that we think about our brains as something that is completely isolated from the rest of the body. And that is just not the case. Our brain is in contact with the rest of us, and for women in particular, it's really strongly connected with our reproductive system. But when we think about women's health, we only think about the reproductive organs. We don't think about our brains, but the two are connected. And the research is showing that as you go through perimenopause or menopause, and your ovaries are starting to, not work the way they used to, your brain has to adjust to that. The input from the ovaries is just not the same anymore. And there are changes that can happen in the brain that for many women lead to hot flashes and night sweats, insomnia, depression, memory lapses, cognitive slippage, and whatnot. But for some women, it also seems to trigger, in a way, the onset of Alzheimer's plaques in the brain. So for predisposed women, we have found a strong correlation. And by the way, we work together. We're always kind of like, he's doing one thing and doing another, but we're together. We have found a strong association between perimenopause and the first visible signs of Alzheimer's plaques in a woman's brain, which really shifts the focus from old age, so many people think of Alzheimer's as a disease of the old, to middle age, especially for women. We need to start thinking about Alzheimer's prevention in our 40s and 50s, if not before then, like you always say, right? If you're 20.
You say that you can look at brains on a scan of people in their 40s and 50s, and you can tell immediately what's a woman's brain because it's shrunk.
Right, yes. We always look at shrinkage of the brain, which is a sign of neuronal loss or atrophy. We look at how brain energy levels change, and we usually find a drop during menopause. So when women who are perimenopausal or postmenopausal tell you that they're exhausted, they're not making it up. There's actually an energy change inside the brain that could potentially explain that. And we're looking into ways of fixing that, obviously. Now that we know what the problem could be, we can find ways to fix that. And then we look at amyloid, we look at Alzheimer's plaques and connectivity in the brain. And just recently, thanks to Maria, we're now going to be able to look at estrogen levels in the brain for the first time ever. So we're very excited about that, right?
So that's incredible for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So that should tell you kind of how far women's health is behind.
Yes.
And so this is super important for daughters, for sons, for women, for men. But I think it's super important, before I get to Jessica, there's so much debate in the public sphere about hormones. And the vast majority of women feel like if they take hormones, I'm going to get cancer right away. And what we have learned, thanks to this research, is that estrogen is a neuroprotector, much like many of the foods that Jim mentioned, that Richard mentioned, are also neuroprotectors. What I know, it's always one size fits all. Everybody's advocating personalized precision medicine, but what is your best advice on that? I know it's big.
Well,
I have these beads in my ear.
I mean, hormones are really important. Replacing hormones is not as straightforward as one would hope. Right, so I think we're learning more and more that it depends on a number of factors. It depends on the woman's age, her age and menopause, and whether or not she had a hysterectomy. And these three factors together really determine the best course of treatment, which may be hormonal. There are other things that work as well, like gabapentin for some women really helps. For other women, is antidepressants. For other women, is really lifestyle. You know, smoking is the number one predictor of an early menopause. And so many women still smoke today. Right? We have several patients who are like, well, just try quitting that first, or healthy diet, exercise, how much sleep you get, stress. Stress is such a big deal. Stress can literally sink your hormones. They work in balance. So if your cortisol, your main stress hormone, goes up, your estrogens go down. And if your cortisol goes down because you're doing stress reduction, then your hormones go back up, and everybody's stressed out.
So you can be stressed through your work situation, through your family situation, your relationship situation. These are really important things to be thinking about when you think about your brain health. Jessica, and we're hoping to partner with Jessica more fully than we have in the past. But Jessica, what are you seeing? There's wait lists everywhere I go for doctors to talk to people about their cognitive health. What do you think these people who came here today to fund your research is the most important thing they should know?
Well, I think we hear a lot of bad news about women and Alzheimer's disease, and I kind of have a 50-50 good and bad news, which is my research is showing that women have better verbal memory than men. On average, throughout the entire lifespan, so we're talking about kids, teenagers, people at middle age, even on up into the 70 to 79-year-old range when we're thinking about getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at a typical diagnosis age. That advantage is maintained even when our brains have changes related to Alzheimer's disease. So if we have brain shrinkage, if we have reductions in our brain metabolism that are classic of Alzheimer's disease, and if we have amyloid in our brain that we can pick up on a PET scan, women still have a verbal memory advantage. So that's all good news. except that if you come into a clinic or if you present for research or a clinical trial, one of the ways that it's determined if you're allowed in or if you have a problem is a verbal memory test. And so my research is showing, and we're working on ways to address this problem, is that women are likely being underdiagnosed or diagnosed later than men are, because our verbal memory tests just aren't sensitive enough at this point to pick up the problems because our memory is too good. So I would just say it's important to advocate for yourself as a woman, and if you think you have a problem or if you think a family member has a problem, really to be your own advocate when you go to the doctor, or to help a family member, be that advocate for them.
So we're going to open this up to you guys. You get a chance to ask them questions, which is extraordinary. It's really important. If Alzheimer's runs in your family, that does not mean you're going to get Alzheimer's. And if it doesn't run in your family, that doesn't mean you're not going to get Alzheimer's. Anybody with a brain can lose it. So everything we've done here today, whether it's meditation, whether it's Jim talking to you about how to improve your memory and train your brain, all the food that is here, the exercise, the researchers that are going to be here for you to ask questions to, everything is designed to help you improve your brain and become knowledgeable. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This has been great. My mother died of Alzheimer's last year. We had brain autopsy, and people would say to me, why did you do that? Wasn't it obvious she had it? I said, but we need to know for the research and so on. And then I've gotten involved. I'm at USC in a brain health study and went through MRIs and PET scans and so on. Thankfully, I have a healthy brain. But a lot of people are like, why would you go through all that? There's no cure, et cetera. So how can you help people? What are things that I can say to people to say, but it's good to know? Some people say, I don't want to know if I have the APOE4 gene and stuff like that. So how do you encourage people to get more information to be on top of prevention?
So that's great, because everybody, we try to also advocate for people to be in clinical trials, because we have a huge dearth of people willing to be in, whether it's cancer trials or Alzheimer's trials. And I always say it's a form of public service. So if you don't want to join the military or the Peace Corps, you can join a clinical trial. But tell, if you could, that's serious, I'm serious. But anyway, you could tell her.
Sure.
Yeah.
So contributing to research is just, it's a blessing, and we appreciate it, and to advance science is amazing. So I have a funny medical problem. I have a strange rare headache problem, and I participated in the clinical trial, and I took the train to Philadelphia from New York once a month for 4 years. Why did I do that? Sure, to advance research, but I was getting a therapy, and I didn't know if it was going to work, but I got this therapy, and then 4 years later, it was approved as a drug, an FDA-approved drug. So one other way of trying to convince people is that if you participate in research, you can get early access to things and get state-of-the-art care. I've been on a medicine, you can see the commercials online now, but like for 5 years I've been on this medicine. It's only been out for the last 8 months. So I think there's a lot of different reasons. Giving back, yes. Advancing science, sure. But maybe you could also, you're in this study, and maybe we will learn something from this study, and we'll better be able to characterize your brain. Getting a brain baseline is worth its weight in gold if something were to happen later. It's that an extra insurance policy. So there's so many reasons, but please participate in research.
Lisa, you're running a brain initiative, and you've just gotten funding, partially from us, to include more people. Why should they join a trial?
Well, so what I was going to say is that if you don't participate in research, then you're not informing research either. And the research that we have is already biased. We were just talking about that with Jessica before. For decades, research was based on men. All the data we had was from men or from male rats, basically. And then it was applied to women with disastrous consequences. And now everybody enrolls both men and women, but what most studies tend to do is really lump them together. So we went from kind of male-dominated research to a genderless research where people are just not looking at things that could work for women or for men differently. So what we're trying to do is to really finally look at gender differences. And in order to do that, we need people to participate in research, right? If we want data that works for women, women need to be part of the research. And the more women we have, the better for us, because we don't want our studies to be all, basically 90% Caucasian women from the Upper East Side. I said it. we really would like our study population to be representative of the United States of America or of the world.
And we should also mention that it is twice as likely in African Americans and also Latinas. And it's really, there's a lot of what I love about today is that there's a lot of men here and there's a lot of young people here who are really on the front lines of being able to pay attention to what is going on in your parents' life or your grandparents' life. Or sometimes my kids will say, you already said that. I'm like, okay, I know I already said that. Thank you for, but it's important that you are really on the front lines of being able to help people who are older than you, whether it's in caregiving or it's in noticing changes in the brain. Jessica, I know you see mainly people who are older, right? And this whole new space is that Alzheimer's is in your brain 20 to 30 years before you're symptomatic. So what can people hear now who don't feel like that they have Alzheimer's, who may be dealing with parents, what should they be looking out for?
I would just say, first, I just want to validate that this is a scary thing. So when people come to you, this is a room full of people who are maybe braver or more comfortable with this topic than people who might come to you. And it is scary for a lot of people to think about. But really just encouraging people to look out for problems in a parent or a relative's ability to use their memory in a way that lets them run their life as they used to. So we're not, lots of us have had those experiences like we talked about going into a room and forgetting what you went in for. And so we're talking about things that go beyond that, things that really impact a person's ability to maintain their finances or remember to take medications, and really just encouraging folks that, if you're looking for these kind of symptoms, and following brain health guidelines, you're doing yourself or your relative a service, regardless of whether or not the problem turns out to be Alzheimer's disease. Brain health is brain health.
A question? Does anybody have a question? Go ahead.
Well, I made the controversial decision to find out that I have a double set of APOE4. And after 3 months of spinning out and thinking I was going to die and trying to figure out what to do, I started doing all the research, and most of what you said today I'm familiar with. But here's the problem. Who do I go to? My doctor had no clue. Who do I go to talk about should I hang it up now, and am I definitely getting it, and what is the reality? And, if I went to see a doctor in Northern California who told me I could never go to a restaurant again, gave me 35 supplements a day, and, and basically let me think, if you don't do this stuff, you're getting Alzheimer's. So after flipping out and trying to find a middle ground, I live in Los Angeles, I don't know who to go to.
Yeah, this is a struggle, and then you have physicians who are, I hate to say this, but in some ways predatory on fear. Fear can be paralyzing, and you can't say statements like that. So let me just take a step back. So the ApoE gene, everyone gets one from mom, one from dad, a 2, a 3, or a 4. You can be a 3-3, a 3-4, and sometimes there's a 4-4. 1% of people out there are a 4-4, just one. Yeah, 1%. Congratulations. In our research study, though, but hold on. In our research study, 11% were 4-4s. And you know what? At 18 months after following the 21 on average recommendations, they did just as well as everyone else. So just because you have this gene, you're not powerless. You can take control of your genes. Okay? Genes are not your destiny. Why do I believe that? Well, ApoE, sorry for the quick science lesson. Sorry, Maria, I gotta be quick. It's a cholesterol gene. Apolipoprotein, lipo, fat, cholesterol. If you control your cholesterol, if you exercise, if you do all these different things, E44s may be preferentially benefited by vitamin D supplementation. This is something that unfortunately you're not gonna talk to most doctors about. I can give you a free course online, shameless plug, but it was funded by you guys too. If you wanna learn everything about this, we started getting a waiting list, so we created a course, a free course online, for everyone, for high school students, college students, you guys out there, you guys and gals, for doctors, for medical students, for neurology trainees. If your doctor doesn't know about this, tell them to go to a CME accredited site, ALZU Alzheimer's Universe, alzu.org. 2.5 hours of online education. You know, there's exercise content, 10 extra lessons about spinning and about high-intensity interval training and kind of concepts from like the cut, the thing that we did a few years ago. So the take-home point is there's online courses. I'm sorry that we don't have the medical profession that has evolved enough yet, but hopefully our study this week and other studies will get there. Tell your doctor to look online. Medscape is how doctors learn. We now have education. Maria, thank you. You did a video for us with Medscape. The last video we did, 120,000 physicians watched the video that Maria and I did. We're making progress. Talk to your doctor. And online on that website, we teach you how to take a deep breath and not super worry about the 4-4 thing.
Okay, we're going to have, go ahead, and then we're going to have one more question. Go ahead.
I just want to say, do you want to add that ApoE is not the Alzheimer's gene?
Please, yeah, this is such a misconception. So
Let's do that.
people that come and have the ApoE4 gene, especially one copy, a little lower risk, I know this is going to sound strange. That's a good thing. Why? Because I know what I'm up against. ApoE4 is a lifestyle plus Alzheimer's disease, in my opinion. If you live the right livelihood and do all the right things, you can neutralize a lot of the negative effects. 2 copies, you have to really push it, and really, it's a little more tricky. But sometimes when people don't have the ApoE4 gene, they have a party, yay, I'm fine. No, there's like 35 other genes that may be lurking, unfortunately. So the take-home point is genes are not your destiny, and the education is out there, but it's hard to find.
Okay, go ahead. One more question.
I just had a question. I take a cholesterol-lowering medicine, and I keep hearing rumors that could affect my brain because it's taking the cholesterol out of my brain. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, so I don't agree with that on the whole. I would say, should cholesterol medication be in the drinking water? I'm not sure about that, but on the vast majority of cases, greater than 90% of cases, people should be on that cholesterol medicine. The tricky thing here is men versus women's brains are different. Whoa, newsflash, right? So, in our clinical practice, and it's based on research, certain statin drugs may work better in women versus men. I don't want to overstate, but I think we're figuring this out. Sometimes lower doses may be better. People with I hate saying this because I'm not sure, but 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene may need to be a little bit more cautious with some of the statin use, and this is a little tricky and controversial, so don't quote me. Is this being recorded? So long story short, by far and away, 90% of the time, statin drugs for high cholesterol are going to protect you.
Also, they can't take the cholesterol out of your brain. No, brain cholesterol is completely isolated to the rest of the body, and is made by the brain itself, and it can't leave so it's up to the brain whether or not the cholesterol leaves the brain, but the statin won't take it out of it. Just say.
All of these doctors are going to now break into doctor's hours. You can go and talk to them yourself. And so if you have any questions, talk to them and then bring those questions to your doctor. These are the best in the world, and they're here, and they're going to do that. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you for coming, and I hope you'll ask them questions.